I remember, I remember I was part of this other cohort and through a grant award that I received, and I remember speaking, to the grant, the person that the grant,
Grantee?
the grant. I'm the grantee. She's the grant.
Okay, yeah.
I guess I don't know. She had the money, so like I did not. I was like, thank you so much. I need that money. But it was a wonderful program because she would periodically meet with everybody and she gave so many resources and was really detailed and just gave her time and be like, how's it going? How has this grant helped you? How can I help you? Things like that. And I would just remember, like, at the time, I was dealing with the logistic nightmare that was happening in Asia, bringing all the products over, and I was
Need that for the podcast. Don't talk too much about it.
Oh, fine. Okay. Well, I thought we were going at it. I was like, let's just go.
Do you know what? There is something to this. This is a very natural conversation, Sarah. We should discuss this.
Yeah.
We should do like the intro and outro separate. We can.
Oh,
you're right. You're right. Because we're always like, hi, this is Serena and Sandra. Okay. Go, girl. Keep talking. Fearless and flawed. We are so flawed.
But no,
talk about that. Yes.
So no, I'll make the story short because I can go on. I'm a Pisces and I just like to elaborate and talk about like and what I was wearing and whatever. And she basically said to me, Sandra, if you're not breaking down once a week, then you're not an entrepreneur. And I was like, oh my God, I guess I made it. Yeah.
Come back. Well done.
Yeah. I was like, okay. Like, nobody told me that. But yeah, it's hard. It's hard. It's probably one of the hardest things. I mean, Sarah, you can totally attest to it too, but I think it's one of the hardest things that I've done, other than giving birth, but and raising children, because that's really hard too. But it's just the putting yourself out there, and constantly. And there was many days. I mean, there are days that I'm like, I do not want to do an Instagram post. I don't want to write a stupid email. I don't want to. But you have to constantly be like plugging because, I mean, at the end of the day, I believe in my product. I believe in my worth. I believe in my idea. But, it's a struggle to stay motivated. Those Monday motivational like noons that you get.
Yes. Yeah.
We all
happy Friday. You're like, I'm not happy. As an entrepreneur, you're the only one you're answerable to get up in the morning, to get out there, to do it. You've been doing this, just so I can give Serena some background too, and just refresh you, but you started this in 2020, right?
We launched the product in 2020.
Okay. Pre-COVID?
No COVID.
Right in the middle of it.
Yeah, like October. So we were still...
Okay, so we'd already gone through a couple of shutdowns.
Yeah. And but I had started the research for it in 2015. So I've been in it for like I've been, in the soup for 9 years. So wow. Yeah. And shall we talk about what my product is?
I mean, yeah, Sandra, yeah. I could just literally, I could listen to you just talk about the weather for days. Like, I love just hearing your animations, your expressions, everything. And then I have to be reminded, like, oh yeah, let's talk about Tappas.
I could do the same about you, Sarah. Okay, so
I was like, I'm just so happy Sandra's joining. She's so. Tell me about Miami, girl. How's the sun? How's the food? How's the croquettes? But I will stop myself for a second. How do we? Let me ask Serena. How do you want to maybe kind of like delve into this in terms of kind of the story and the evolution of Tappas? Do you want to do what we traditionally have done, or do you kind of want to veer off?
I think we're flying free here, girlfriend. Okay. Well, let's just go straight in here.
Yeah, let's go straight in then. So here's the thing, Sandra. Tell us. We of course know about Tappas, but tell us a little bit about pre-innovation, pre-production, like you are, from my understanding, you're a performance artist, you're a theater gal. And then before even Tappas is launched, like walk us through where you're at.
So, okay, so I have Tappas in my hand. For those that are listening, this is a wooden ball, but it is a spherical container. So Tappas is a patented charcuterie sphere, right? A serving sphere. It's multi-leveled. It spirals and turns to display your delicious bites with every turn. Our bowls are made out of all natural wood. This one is made out of bamboo. We also have rubber wood and beech wood. And yeah, I mean, I basically got inspired. I mean, as Sarah had mentioned, I am, I've been a performer, a professionally trained dancer, actor, and choreographer, and all that for many years. And so, I sort of tapped in a little bit into the artistic side, but I also tapped into my cultural side. I'm half Colombian, half Cuban. And this sort of inspiration happened really in the most natural of places, which was at my parents' home. And they were always entertainers, and they loved having people over. And I just remember my mom having a table, and it just didn't really look appetizing at all. She always liked to have a nice table before charcuterie tables were like a thing or whatever, but it was always these little snacks. And I just remember saying to her, I was like, my God, I wish there was like some sort of like container or something that could hold different types of foods, and you can take it from one place to another. You can open it up, voila. And then now you have like this instant centerpiece, this instant serving sort of functional work of art, right? And of course, my mom, as when I was a child, I always used to come up with these crazy ideas. And so my mom would always tell me, stop inventing. Yeah, I mean, I get it a lot from my dad. My dad is kind of like that too. Me, my brother, and my dad, we do this for fun. We like actually get around and we start like coming up with ideas and stuff to see like what's not out there. And then we'll like Google it, and then, oh, somebody took it. But I remember when I talked to my parents about it, I mean, I showed them a drawing, and it was like, stick figures and stuff. And they, my dad instantly was like, this is really cool. And my mom was like, I would buy that. And I was like, okay. So, the ball, if you will, started rolling in that sense. And I'm really thankful that I had such a sort of deep-rooted artistic practice in the community, because I really kind of reached out to all of my artist friends and people, that knew this one or that one, because there was obviously certain things that I definitely lacked. I never did industrial design. I didn't know that kind of engineering. I studied physics up the wahoo, because that's like my master's is in physics and stuff, but not physics per se, but movement sciences and movement analysis. So I was like, the balance is going to work, guys, because everybody said that it wasn't going to balance. And I was like, it's going to work. I know it. And yeah, it was just, again, a series of conversations. And I think that that's what really, in essence, that's like what Tappas is kind of like a conversation starter. Like, oh my God, what is this? Where'd you get it? Oh, let's talk about this ball and eat.
It is a really beautiful design. And I really love the way it all kind of comes out. And if anyone's listening and they haven't looked it up, they should look it up. See, look. So how did you get it engineered? Who did you go to? How did this come around? Was it your sketches? Was it somebody else's? Was it an idea that you had? How did it turn into what it is?
So I did some sketches. Again, on very, very elementary style sketches, but I was like, it's a ball, but then it's flat, and then it has these layers, and then then I actually went out and bought like foam balls, and I started cutting them up into layers and playing around with, okay, how many levels, how many, layers can I have, all this. And at first, my first prototype was this monster of a ball. It was like, and I got it 3D printed through a friend. And, he looked at it and he was like, girl, this is like ginormous. This is like the biggest like I've ever seen. It was, I still have it like, tucked away. I was like, there's my monster ball over there. And I realized, okay, this is way too big, way too many like levels. I was like, no. So that project didn't work. But again, being that I was already so used to working project based, in a way where it's like, okay, well, that didn't work. Okay, so the next project, let's figure out what the next thing will be. And so I met up with my brother's friend who was an artist, and he was the one, him and I literally came together and we were like, okay, it's going to be smaller. It's going to be, 4 levels. I'm like counting because I'm like, oh, the top is the 4th, right? 4 levels. And, we're going to make these sort of like interconnected things. That essentially became my prototype, which my youngest has on his desk for all his Legos and stuff. Which it's very good for that too.
Market it.
Yeah. It is like, yeah. So, it wasn't until, he actually connected this friend of mine. He was the one that then connected me to a manufacturer or an engineer. I'm sorry. And the engineer was like, if we're going to mass manufacture these, like this is obvious. I mean, it's a beautiful design and everything like that, but it has to be, re-engineered for injected molding or something, right? Okay. Which at the time I was considering plastic. What? And once we went through a couple of designs and tests, then finally I had the final, model. But I was like, I don't know. Like the tooling was going to cost so much. It was like a lot of like initial investment that I was like, my husband was looking at me and he was like, girl, I want to retire. So you're not, no. I was like, okay. So it ended up being, again, through conversations with people that I got connected with another person. And this guy, he saw it and he was like, you need to make this out of wood. And I was like, I would love to make this out of wood because I think it would just, yes, it's like, I'm a tree hugger. Can we get like some cool, fast growing woods like bamboo or, something that's, that can, essentially it could almost be compostable, right? At the end of the day. So it's like, you're not putting more plastic into the ocean. And that was big for me. So, and it ended up working out that for us to make the investment, it wasn't going to be as substantial as doing the tooling for plastic. So I said, all right, let's just go, The only thing is that, yeah, I would raise the cost of the product a little bit more, but it made it more elegant, which I think is nice.
Was that process, so relationships, you're talking to people, but it's also a patented product, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Whenever I hear patented, I'm like, "Ooh, girl, you're a businesswoman." And like, you always watch Shark Tank, and there's always one shark who's like, "Is it patented?" And you're like, "Oh, it's not." Well, forget it. But so like, so as never going through that process, what is that like? Like, is it easy? Is it difficult? Is it super financially burdensome? How do you patent a product?
So, yeah, I mean, okay. So this is what I am a little fortunate because I have a lot of friends that are attorneys of different practices and things like that. But again, it was all these connections and stuff. And some of them were like, actually, one friend of mine who is a patent attorney, he told me not to patent it. And I was like, why are you saying this to me? And he goes, he goes, just make them because, somebody's going to come around and they're going to like, steal it. And I was like, yeah, but I don't think this is like really good advice. And so I'm just going to put you on mute and we're going to call it a day. But it kind of stuck with me because I was like, okay, if I get a patent, then it could be replicated. But if I don't get a patent, it's going to get replicated. So I was like, I feel like I needed that protection, right? And my husband's an attorney, but not in any way, shape, or form. Like, he has no idea. He looked at me and he was like, just let's have a conversation with somebody and let's see how the process goes. So thankfully, that little small version, right, was my prototype. And all I did was set up a meeting and I showed up. And I remember I brought out this thing and the guy looked at me and he goes, it's a red ball. And I was like, yes, but. and then I like spun it and it swirled and opened around and he was like, oh, he goes, my wife would like that. And I was like, you see? And I was like, and it's supposed to come apart and this and that. He looked at me and, there's two different ways to go. You can go the utility route and then you can go the design route. Now, the utility route is a little bit more expensive. It'll run you kind of around $8,000 to $9,000 with the application and everything, okay? But this is for essentially designs or how do I say it? Things that are so intricate and different that the function is different, right? In some capacity. He told me the design patent is a little less. It'll run you between $1,500 to $2,000. And he goes, what you have right now is something that is design centric because there's already things in the market that swirl, right? Or swivel. He goes, but your thing is an actual sphere. Whereas some people have done cylinders per se, right? Or like makeup, kits that are like 2-level that just open like that. You know what I mean? Like those things have been around. He goes, your thing is just different because it's a sphere and it's multi-leveled. He goes, in my opinion, you have more of a likelihood of passing and obtaining the patent through this route rather than the utility. Because the problem is that if you apply for the patent and then the attorney goes and presents their case and it has to do a bunch of research, they got to make sure that this is like a very unique and different you could lose all that money if you lose, So, yeah, it took about, I think I applied for it in 2018 and I didn't get the approval until 2019. So it took about a year and a half.
Mm-hmm. What did you do when you got it? I feel like that's like a big business win that people just are like, oh, like did you like celebrate?
No, I was driving and I was on a stop and I was like, I looked at my message for a second and I was like, I just froze and I started crying. I immediately called my husband, my dad. I was like, God. And then they were like, oh my God, that's amazing. And I was like, yay. And then I would go, but now what do I do? Like what happens next? Then the next thing is like, okay, well, what now? So
yeah, what do you do next?
Yeah.
I mean, question.
Yeah, look in his eyes. What do you do next?
What do you do next? Like, because it's and we were like in a very interesting point because we hadn't found the wood manufacturer yet, or we were still kind of exploring that and we weren't sure if that was going to work out. And so I was sort of like in limbo. I was like, well, I have the plastic version, but I was like, okay, we got this patent now. Like where is it going to lead us? And and led us down the wooden path.
So like, what do you? So you get okay, you have the patent. Because I always like to think things very chronologically. That's like the stickler in me. I'm like A, B, C, D. And this is why, being around creatives, it always challenges me to be like, Serena's always saying to me like, we could just kind of go with it. And I'm like, well, what's but like there's a timeline. Don't be skipping over too much because I'm gonna have questions. But like you get the patent. You're this businesswoman, on paper, right? Where it's like you own a patent. Woo! Where do you sell it? Like, how do you get it out there? Like, you have to have a website. You have to. Are you scared? Are you excited? Like, what's going on?
All of that. I was like, so, I just remember there was nights where I was just like, I would like look at this thing and I was like, where are you gonna take me? What are you doing to me? Like, where are we going? Where are we going with this? And and I just sometimes, I mean, I'll say this, the best thing that happened during that time is that I wasn't in a rush. I wasn't in a rush to like make it happen, right? I was working. I had my kids were very small and I was just kind of like pacing myself, It was like one of those things where it was like, okay, I got the patent this week and then, next week I'll focus on this and touch base with X and Y and Z and see what's going on. And then, we'll just keep on following up, as I went along. But it wasn't something where I was like, okay, that's it. Tomorrow we go, that was kind of like a gift for me. And I have to cough. So you might have to.
No, we keep it flawless. Flawed. I forgot the name of the podcast for a second, Serena. Like we're flawless and
perfect. We're perfect.
Dude, oh my God. So you want to know how Miami's contaminated now, girl. Everybody's got the COVIDs or this crazy cough. It's crazy.
But you look fabulous. That's all that matters. Okay. You can double on, but I'm so into this design and this patent. And I'm like, yes, Sandra, you go with your little red ball that it was like, girl, what is it? And you're like, but look, and I love how you even described it because it's so like, to me, the way you even describe it is like performance art. You're like, but look, but ta-da, what this? It's very Vanna White.
Have a bit of performance about it. Yeah. The way it unravels and stuff. It is like a dance.
It's like a pirouetting ball. It's like my little dancing bola, And then she's like super cute. She could just show one.
Yes.
She could show
just a little toe.
Middle. And if you want to just get the bottom, she could show her bottom. and it stays. It's like, it's super balanced. I'm proud of myself. I did that, but
you did that.
But it was hard work and it was a lot of people, that contributed to it. So, I don't think that we go into anything completely alone, that's one thing that I, take into my, artistic practice. Like artistic work is always created in a crazy collaborative way. But I feel like the business is that was one thing that I learned. And I was like, oh my God, this is like, just making like an artwork. Like it's great, like a piece,
But where is Tappas today? Where are you with the business? Do you have a team? Yeah. Where do you sell? Where can people buy it? Let's just get down to the basics here.
Yes.
So Tappas right now, Tappas has gone through many channels and many phases. Right now we're sold still on Amazon, on Shopify, our main page, and we're also on Etsy. So we've downsized a little bit on all of our channels. I mean, and for the most part, it's pretty much been me. I've had interns and, volunteers and I still have my advisory board that comes in and helps out. Definitely it's very much family owned and run. So I tap into my family to help me out on certain things. And, what I've realized, and this was actually something that I always sort of, was always sort of like the option for me, right? Which I'll get back to. But But through the years, I realized I was like, okay, this is very rewarding work. I'm getting to meet amazing people like Sarah and, make these awesome connections to people that I otherwise would never have made, right? So I do believe that this beautiful little magic ball has sort of taken me into another world, right? Pun intended. And and but I did realize that, the manufacturing side of things is something that I'm like, wow, this is a lot. And people that create their own work or products that are mass manufactured and all that and mass marketed and all, it's like huge. It's like a huge undertaking. I came into this as an experiment, right? I'm gonna have to drink some water for a second. I'm sorry. You have to cut for a moment. Hold on.
It's parched. Got a story to tell.
No, I can't. My throat gets dry.
Or it's the Miami weather. It's the air. It's either or.
No, it's one of those things. I'm like hot flashes. I'm kind of like premenopausal too.
Can we get a fan on, Sandra? Can we get a fan? And I'm just kidding.
Can we get a fan over here? No.
Yeah.
And so what I needed like major honey, but okay, let me go back. So yeah, I came into this as an experiment, right? I didn't know what the market was how it was gonna react, how, if people were gonna like it, if people were even gonna buy it. And they did. And there was a response. And that was, for me, more than enough. So about a year ago, I started shifting my focus and saying, okay, I'm not going to mass manufacture anymore. And I want to really focus on finding a potential licensing agreement with, a company that has the power, the man power, woman power too. Just all the facilities already in place. And I don't want to like celebrate too soon because I did find an incredible partner. I came close twice. 2 times I came really close, but the third time was a charm. And not to say that I didn't send out information to a ton of people, y'all, because I did. I sent like incredible amounts of emails. But out of all those emails, I got like 2, and now this one third person that was our third company that's interested. And we did sign an agreement in July. But right now we're in the sort of research phase on their end because they're going to try to, streamline and tweak some things so that they can.
You're in the dating phase of the relationship.
Yes, we're dating right now. So I can't. I could disclose, who they are, but right now I can't. But I'm really excited, and I feel like that's definitely the path that I always envisioned. Right? Is like, okay, I have this, but. And Sarah, you probably can totally like relate to this. Like, I think being a business owner, like really shows you what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, right? And what is like your threshold, like straight up, like I can't, no, no puedo. Like we say over here, like I can't. And, and, there was things throughout the process where I was like, I really don't see myself doing this particular work forever. You know what I mean? And it those midnight calls, overseas, and you're like trying to talk to somebody and they don't understand what you're saying.
You said very early on in the interview, in the conversation, that you were raised coming up with these ideas. So you must be itching for the next new shiny thing.
I am. So this has rooted me a lot in a way to like, again, really understand what my strengths are and what brings me joy. And art making, being in process, being in the studio, being with people, that brings me joy. Like, I love that. I like throwing, shit on the wall, excuse my French, and seeing what sticks. And designing Tappas in the beginning was like that. It was like, oh yeah, everybody's bringing their voices, and I would show it, and they would really, and I would take notes, and I was like, oh my God, this is great. And it was all part of the creative process, right? And as not just as an artist, but as an educator, because I have been an educator, even throughout this time, I'm still like an adjunct. I teach my classes. It kind of gets me out of Tappas for a little bit and into the studio to get like, sweaty and, let's like create stuff. And I found that I was like, man, this is really the space for me, right? And I mean, I might have swayed a little bit, but I felt like I needed to, kind of out of curiosity, to see and explore what this idea was and why people were reacting the way that they would when they would see it. And I was like, there's something here, so maybe I should explore it. And I have, and I know that it's going to start taking a different route for me, and that's wonderful, I hope. And but I think that with this new path, it's going to give me back that opportunity to just kind of like basically get back in the studio and keep on doing the work that I'm doing. I'm very community based. I love working with young people, and so yeah, that's probably where I'll end up going. Who knows?
Like, I always find it very interesting because you are such a creative, right? Your world is, like you said, you're out there, you're doing it, you're teaching, your movement, all those things are so near and dear to you. And typically, like, business is like the other world, right? And usually you get like, the business brain, and then they find like the artistic creative brain, and those two people usually, but you are both of those brains together.
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing too is like, you've dabbled in the quote unquote business side.
Yeah.
Did it turn something on for you where you're like, oh, like I'll take a little break maybe from it? Or was it more validating for like, well, no, I dabbled in it, but like it doesn't give me what I thought it would. Like, when you look back on the whole experience,
right,
what's kind of your takeaways for like, this is what I thought would be my persona in this setting?
Yeah.
Reality, what are some key takeaways looking back at like the last basically 10 years since you started thinking about it? What, 7 years since 2018, you said? So
2015.
2015, yeah. So like, what are the takeaways of your journey?
Well, so a couple of things. One, when I first started with this, I totally felt like, I think now they call it like imposter syndrome, but from my generation, we call it a poser. That's what we used to say back in the 90s. Oh, you're a poser. And I remember this one man that, he's like some big Amazon guru and all that, and he was having like a meetup, and he, when I showed him the thing, he was like, I was like, I'm an artist. And he goes, but artists are entrepreneurs. Sandra, artists are entrepreneurs. And I was like, oh yeah, you're so right. Like, I think about it. And at that point, I had, produced a few works. So I had to deal with the logistics of people, rehearsal schedules, studio, tech rehearsals, payments, creating the whole work, ticket sales, all those things, press releases, all that stuff that I didn't think about it that way. I just thought, we just we just make art, we just make dances, and people come and whatever. Oh, that's my dog. She's actually having a nice dream right now. If you hear her in the background, she was like, anyway. So
thinking about those ticket sales. She's thinking about your yes. She's like, yes, mom, ticket sales. You did it, girl. You did it. Come on, that's your biggest one.
Yeah. And so I thought, okay, I could do this.
Yep.
I could do this. And so if anything, I think that this experience has heightened my understanding and kind of like my outreach, if you will, to let artists know about like their worth, right? What they're contributing is work, and that their work needs to be supported, right? So if anything, yeah, I mean, it made me it made me into a more business savvy artist in a way. Like I still have been choreographing and creating, different works. Like right now I'm collaborating for a new work with these two musicians from New York that are coming down to Miami in November. And it was like, again, sitting down with them, negotiating, telling them, hey, this is what I can do to you. This is what I bring to the table. Not just in terms of artistic talent, but logistical stuff too, that you don't have to worry about. And, writing contracts, things like that. So I think it's just become an evolution for me to kind of look at basically art as, yes, an artistic, like an expression, but it's also a means of compensation and work. There is time in art making. And so we value time, we value energy, we value output. And so, yeah.
Well said. Well, I think even when I phrase that question, like I think you're right. I think I've been kind of fed that message too, where it's like artist or business person, and that they kind of live separately. And so you kind of feed into this, but to your point, the artist is the entrepreneur. Here's something I literally produce with my hands through my own thoughts. Now I have to market it. Maybe it's at the, the local fair, or whether it's at like the big schwanky, opening the Miami Art Gallery. But all those pieces of business are integral to the process.
Yeah. And it's fearless. It's really hard to put yourself out there with your art, with something that you're passionate about, something that you love, bring it out there, letting the world see you, what it really is, who you really are. It's a brave move.
Oh, thank you. And I think all artists and people, artists and entrepreneurs, I think that, they are fearless, I think, in nature. I think, we try to, what's the word? I don't know. We're just curious. And that's to me has always been the thing for me, is that I'm a very curious person. I'm always kind of like, wow, I wonder how that's made. Can I fix this? And yeah, I just, again, I think that going back to what Sarah had mentioned is that, many artists are not trained to think of themselves as business people. And that's a huge detriment. I think that's lacking in a lot of art.
The syndrome, as you mentioned.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And I've been having a lot of conversations with some of my former students that have graduated, with their BFAs and things like that. And I tell them, you are an artist. You are your best advocate. And you now need to go out there and, be that person, whether it be you auditioning or you actually creating something. Those are all part of these business sort of exchanges. But yeah, I think that those two worlds need to start coming a little closer together. Some artists might say, oh, but it's about the art. It's about yes, but we got to feed ourselves and we got to live.
Is there a bit of like the selling out idea? Is it a bit of
there's a little bit of that. But at the end of the day, like, you got to put food on the table. So I think that there could be a very healthy balance where you can create the art that you want to make, but you have to be an advocate for yourself, and you have to put yourself out there, and you have to really know how to negotiate your worth. It's
my son has just finished his degree in performing arts and dance.
Okay.
So he's now going through this journey of having to sell himself. Unfortunately, I think he's picked up some of his mum's traits of imposter syndrome and I'd sooner stand in the background and not be seen and stuff like that. And I keep trying to tell him that it's exactly that. It's a business transaction. You have to sell yourself. You have to put your best foot forward. You have to believe in yourself. You're not going to get spotted if you keep hiding. No one's going to see you if you're not out there.
Yeah. And for dancers, I mean, that's going to be another conversation for another day. But for dancers, it is hard, because I think again, I'm going to speak for myself. This is sort of my opinion, and kind of like a little bit based on my sort of training and upbringing, right? And I'm older, so I'm like in my mid 40s. So things were way crazier then than they are now, right? I think that things have totally changed for dancers particularly. But when I was growing up, it was like you did what you're told. You learn your choreography, you stand here, you don't do that, and it was very much a
Do you believe it's changed?
I think there is some element of it, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. But growing up with that mentality, right? It took me until I was like in my 30s to be like, wait, or like late, almost, into my late 20s into early 30s, where I was like, I have a voice. Why do I have to wait anymore to start making my own work? Like, when is the threshold, right? And I think now there's a lot of dancers that are coming out from the get that want to make their work, and they want to be seen. Social media has propelled that for a lot of people, I think. But there are still structures that are in place that really kind of sort of elevate these power positions. I mean, we're seeing it in this company in Dallas, Texas, Dallas Black Dance Theater, and it's a bunch of dancers tried to unionize, and they got fired. So,
it's kind of like riding that wave of like, I mean, because we talk a lot again about kind of knowing your place, but at the same time, like, listen, I follow you on Instagram. I genuinely like you. And then, and she's a business owner. So I saw you in Good Housekeeping. Saw you in Pop Sugar. I saw I saw on mytappas.com, you kind of have your features, and then on Instagram, if you're following your journey. So like, you are out there, like, you have that. I think that it's that artisanal story that almost makes the product so much more unique and a feature for a publication like Pop Sugar. So there is a little bit of like, maybe, it has the appearance, it's aesthetically beautiful, it's functional.
Right.
At the same time, like, you're getting out there at the right places that want to feature that type of thing, that want to feature like, the artisan who also has a business. So in a strange way, it's like that maybe now is much more forward facing with social media.
Yeah.
I voted for you in those competitions where it's like, vote for Tappas. I'm like, oh, let me create 5 different emails for Sandra right now. But I'm
Thank you.
Performance world, I'll do whatever I can to get you to number 1.
Girl, I voted for you too. I saw you on TV.
You did.
My family and my friend, I was like, everybody's got to vote for her. Okay.
Yeah. But it's I genuinely, I hear what you're saying because I'm not from the dancing world. I'm trying to understand kind of how it's that kind of look pretty and just kind of, fit what role you're supposed to do, whatever choreography. But at the same time with social media and with, everyone now is like, well, what's your story? What's your story? That becomes more personable when it's, Sandra in Miami versus like, oh, it's just like a huge conglomerate in China. Right. The right person that you're targeting, they want to know that like, oh, she also teaches X, Y, and Z. So do you feel like it's also not just your own ambition, but it's also like the environment has fostered the ability to play both roles?
Yeah, my family has been super supportive. They're kind of like the ones that, were cheering me on. But at the same time, it was like this cautious cheerleading, right? Where it was like, okay, we're going to take this step and then we'll see what happens. Because that's always like the same, right? We'll see what happens. I'm like, okay. So we would take the next step and then we would take the next step. And so it was this thing. And my dad, I come from like business owners, my mom has her preschool that she's had for 25 plus years. I think they're almost like 30 actually. In 2 years, they'll be 30 actually. And, my grandmother, my dad's mother growing up was, she had her own business as well. She would literally knock on doors selling water filters and bidets. These like little detachable bidets. I mean, it was super sexy. And, so I grew up with this sense of like, and my dad, he's a consultant. He's worked for a lot of startups. So he's been part of like the building and the breaking down and build up and down. And so he's seen it throughout. And, and my husband owns his own, business as well. So, I'm thankfully in a space where people are kind of giving me this advice. But I think what's interesting is that they're all approaching this in a new perspective because no one has ever sold a product before other than my grandmother, but she passed away.
A pioneer of like that door-to-door selling. You're on. Run.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a hard life. That's
yes.
Yeah. Like straight up like that. That's how she did it. And I mean, my dad has, he understands product stuff like that, but he's more in the tech side. So it's a little different, but the physical product space for home is really like a new world for everybody. And I think that, we all kind of came into it like, all right, we're going to try this out and we're going to see where it takes us and we're going to learn from it, And I think we've learned a lot of things. I think I now value the process of making the spoon.
Yeah. Right.
Where did this spoon come from? Oh my God, everything that took to make this one spoon.
Don't get me started on salt shakers. I'm like, look at this design. The economics on this is insane.
Exactly.
And like people from out there, like, put down the salt shaker. We're leaving this room. And I'm like,
and I'm sure you get that too, Sarah. Being in the beauty business and understanding like what it is to create this, product now for children. I mean, it just kind of really opens a lot of doors into understanding what our world is made of.
You have to be a little loopy, I think, in a good way. A little bit of like, because curiosity is something that I think as we get older, we naturally kind of, it becomes like, oh, curiosity is for kids. Now we're older, we live in the real world, we don't have time to be curious. So I think you have to be kind of a little bit childish in that way, right? You have to be a little bit imaginative, which I think to the average adult world can look a little zany. Can be like, put down the salt shaker, and you're like, but no, someone had to patent this, and I really appreciate that. You kind of have to be a bit out there in your own head, you know. You have to be out there in the world to actually take what's in here and create something, but you have to own it, right? You have to own it.
Totally. I mean, because if you don't believe in it, nobody else will.
Yeah, someone believed in like the brown paper bag to put your lunch in. Now my pet rock. Like, they believed in it. It's the story, right?
I say it all the time to myself. I'm like, if my pet rock sold, Tappas can sell. Like, I would tell myself that all the time. If my pet rock made it, I can do it. You know,
and you did.
It's like a little bit, but you're absolutely right. There's a little bit of like, locuras.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. But I think, all in stride, because you do then hear about these stories of people that, that they've invested so much. And I just, again, it's understanding what your boundaries are, right? Like where can I go, and what do I feel like comfortable, yet what is going to make me a little scared, but I'm interested and I want to try. And then what is like, okay, no, if I get to this point, that's like, so it's understanding your boundaries for sure.
Totally. Serena, what was the, our last interviewee, was Jackie. She was named Jackie, and she's from Jack and Jewels, which is a line of kids jewelry. I shouldn't say just kids. If she was here, she'd say, no, it's kids, teens, and adults. Okay, fair. And
everyone.
We had asked her a question to ask you.
Okay.
What was the question, Serena? I'm trying to...
You remembered, not me.
Well, I remember her. If I remember correctly, I think it was such like she was just like, I would ask them like, how did you get here? And then like after the fact, we were like, that's our whole podcast idea. How did you get here? Like, you want to be a little bit more like, we only realized that after the fact. We're like, I got into that point by like minute C. So Serena, do you have any zany random questions to ask that a past interviewee would ask? And it could be thing, but is there anything out there that you want to throw out in lieu of Jackie's question to get here?
In lieu of the fact that we've asked the question anyway. What's your favorite salt shaker?
What is your favorite? I want to know.
I don't even have one. I think I just used the salt thing that had. Isn't that horrible?
Oh my goodness.
I have like the actual dispenser. I was like, oh, it is, it's either the holes or the holes, I just like that.
My question is, my question is, what would you say was the most fearless part of the whole journey for you? Where's your fearlessness? I mean, obviously it's there, it's everywhere. Okay, no, let's reword that. What was the biggest flaw? What was the hardest thing to overcome? Sorry, I've jumped all over the place. What was the hardest thing to overcome and helped you develop and learn something that you might not have thought you were going down?
Like that, Serena. That's juicy.
That was a big thought there.
I would just have asked what she puts in her Tappas Bowl.
I've seen those on the website.
Everything.
Lego.
My children. I put my children inside.
That's a big one.
Big one. Yes.
Right, you're naughty in the Tappas Bowl.
Exactly.
To answer Sarah's question, you could put meats, you could put cheeses, you could put chips, you could put dips, you can put fruits, you can put nuts, you can
put in there though, Sandra. No,
hang on. We could also go
put
down the
everything
road
in there.
Easy is it to clean?
Oh, it all comes apart. There you go. That's an easy question.
Uh-huh.
So for those that are seeing or watching, it does come apart. Let me try to get her better. I'm using one hand. So it comes apart. And as you can see, it has like all the different layers. And it actually has like a little knob on the bottom. So I kept it separate so I can be able to like put it apart. But all you do is you wash it with cold water and some soap and let it air dry. That's it.
And it's really a beautiful design. Anyone that's not watching, it's really beautiful. You should look it up. Definitely.
Yeah. And I have all these in Europe. I really wish I could do that. But
well, I can see it on Amazon.
Oh,
it's on Amazon.
On UK?
Yes.
What? I didn't know that.
I got very excited halfway through. As you said, you sold it on Amazon. I had a little sneaky peek. And yes, I can buy them off Amazon.
It makes
I think I'd sooner buy it from the US and get it shipped over here, though. But
wait. And it says Tappas store, the brand.
Yeah. If not, I'd been jumping straight on that pattern for you.
Well, see, I'm telling you, Amazon, that's another conversation. But Sarah knows.
But wait, back to Serena's Fearless. Her question.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Everything she's talked about has been fearless. I mean, from going to get the patent to finding a manufacturer to just seeing her mum's table and criticizing it. I mean, that's fearless.
I think so. I mean, there's a lot of challenges. Design wise, there was issues, with certain things that I was very particular about. So those things were, aesthetic stuff, logistic stuff. I can't even I could go into a story about all that. I think the biggest thing that I've had to overcome and I'm still trying to overcome, it's an ongoing process, is within myself. And is, I guess the pressure of putting, the pressure of always being on the go, of never feeling like I'm not doing enough, or that I could do more, right? Those things for me are sort of like ongoing internal battles that I am always constantly working around, because I really value rest, and I talk about resting, but resting is hard for me. And I think I talk about it because I know it's a challenge for me, but I still try to give myself, even if it's like 10 minutes a day, to just lie down. But sometimes I'm like, yeah, but I really need to answer this email, and I really need to, do this and blah, blah, blah. But it's an ongoing conversation that I have with myself, that it's like, okay, I think you're okay, Sandra. and people tell me, they're like, girl, how you doing? And sometimes I'm like, I don't know. I just kind of, I guess I just do it. You know what I mean? And there's a beautiful video that I saw the other day that they were talking about. It was called it was like an African proverb about finding love in doing what you do, right? Like finding love and joy in the act of doing, right? So the guy said, you could love your plant, but in order to love your plant, you need to love watering your plant. You need to love, when I was talking about like before, putting like milk on the leaves to clean the leaves and stuff like that. You need to love doing that in order to love the plant. And I was like, wow, like, yeah. So maybe there's a sense of like that I love the act of doing, but at times the challenge for me is understanding the balance, of like, okay, you've done enough for today, and it is okay to take this time for yourself.
I'd love to know some tips on how to overcome that.
Yeah, double click.
Yeah, I don't think I mean, I don't know if anybody overcomes that, but I just think that that's I don't know. I mean, I feel like we are in this mad rush all the time, and I think we need to place a little bit of value in rest, you know? And I have that conversation with my husband often because he's very, very go, 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 go.
Me and Sarah have had that conversation a number of times between ourselves.
Yeah.
Just as not knowing when to stop, when to celebrate, when to pat yourself on the back, when to do any of those things. We're just all, right, what's the next thing I need to do? Need to jump forward, need to keep going, and just never knowing when to like take a breath and celebrate these little wins.
So we never do. I mean, do you find that? It's almost like, you know, wanting dessert, but then being always like, oh, well, I don't want to eat the cookie now if there's something better out there. I always kind of like liken that to the celebration. It's like, well, this celebration isn't big enough to celebrate. Let's wait for the next celebration or the next win, right? As the
entrepreneur. No, I mean that cookie.
Well, I would eat the cookie too, but I'm the cookie and the cake that is more, you know, homemade. But it's this idea that like sometimes there's a bit of depriving oneself of things that you would never deprive your friend, your husband. If they did something great, you'd be like, wow, let's celebrate this. But when it's our own doing, when it's something that has been our own undertaking, there's a bit, and maybe it's just me, but there's a bit of like, oh, this isn't worthy of eating the cookie over, you know, let's wait until something bigger and better happens. And so what I have found is that to think that I'm going to correct that overnight or even in this lifetime might be unrealistic. But the first step is the awareness that I'm even doing that process. It's just the awareness, like, okay, I'm doing that. And then to hear, you know, two other women that I admire saying, oh, I kind of feel that way too. Or yes, I definitely feel that way. It's like, wait, I thought it was just here and I was a little, but like y'all got too. Y'all pretty normal. You kind of lean in and you're like, tell me more.
Maybe we're all just a little bit.
Well, and I think that that's something that I think generally women overall we're conditioned. We can't talk too much about ourselves. I mean, it's literally like the Barbie movie monologue, right? Don't be too proud. Don't dress too sexy. Don't talk too much. Don't go, you know, all these things, because you know, then you're you know, luciéndote. How do you say that in English? Like you're like, you know, showing off.
That's
right?
why we're doing this podcast. We are fearless and we are flawed.
And Sandra, what would you ask as you have been through this journey? What would you ask the next person that we chat with? What's like, and listen, make it your own. You're an artist. It could be something, you know, it doesn't have to be business related. It could be yeah. What would you ask? I'm just curious to kind of keep that womanhood, you know, ball moving forward.
The ball. I'm gonna pass the ball.
Let
me actually pass the ball. Here you go. I would ask a couple. Oh, good. I have a couple questions.
Write down this week.
Yeah, let's write it down, because last week I was like, wait, go back to what exactly was the question? You know, we're organized for the most part, but then every now and then it's like, girl, did you catch?
We get so excited about doing this.
Oh, I black out during these. I have so much fun, and then I'm like, I need a nap. I'm oversensitized now. It's true. I'll be taking a nap.
Yes, we should all take a little power nap, a little Lupe nap, because Lupe is
actually.
Lupa's my dog. He's just I want to come back as her. That's a good question. If you could come back in your next life, what would it be?
Love it.
Right?
That
would be my dog. That would be my Lupe. So that's question number one. If you could come back in your next life, or who would you be, or what would you be? I would say if you could go back and do it all over again, what would you change?
That's a good question.
I know. I love that. It's yummy, right?
It is yummy.
What? Oh, here's a good one. Okay.
Tell me more.
What would you tell? Hold on. How do I phrase this? What would you tell, or if the 12-year-old version, if you had a conversation with your 12-year-old self, what would you tell them?
That's good.
Right?
That's good. And I'm excited to ask that. Those are good.
I'm so excited to ask that. I want to ask you, Sandra.
What?
What would you tell 12-year-old Sandra?
I would tell 12-year-old Sandra, I would sit her down and I'll be like, Queen, nobody is going to understand you, so don't even try.
Good.
No one's going to understand you. Don't even try. And I would just say, keep dreaming because it's going to take you places.
Love it.
Love it too. Girl, I say this all the time to Serena off camera. I'm not sure if I've said it on camera. We need to have an alcoholic beverage or mocktail, but it's some type of fancy drink at the end to cheers, because we do this on Fridays. And there's like that statement you just made. A bit of me is like, just want to go and run up and down the street and shout that out right now. You get that feeling. And since I'm not going to do that because I respect my husband and don't want him to be embarrassed, I take a sip of something delicious. So next time, Serena, okay, water.
Café con leche.
Yeah, exactly. That's like the perfect bow on top. It's like, yes. And it's true and it's honest and it's real and it's so relatable.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I'm having more and more, it's very surreal. Okay. Cause I have two boys, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, they're literally like morphing into these men,
How old are they?
15 is my oldest, and my 11-year-old will be 12 now in November. So I have a 15 and an 11-year-old. So my 15-year-old literally transformed like last year, and or about a year and a half ago, right?
I had a moment once. My son is 22.
Oh,
but I remember about 14, 15, I was down the other end of the garden and I looked into my kitchen and I thought, who is that man at my fridge? It was like a real moment of, he's not my boy anymore. He's grown. He's big.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Sorry. Just empathizing. Just
no. And so I'm seeing them transform. I'm looking at my 11-year-old and he's still with his little baby face, and he just started 6th grade, and I'm looking at my husband and I'm like, that's it. Like, the time is ticking. His little person is gonna come out, right? But then I was looking at myself and ding, right? Looking at myself, ding. And I thought, oh my God, like this face that we stare at every day, right? How we're like growing, every day. And I was like, man, I wish I could see my little 12-year-old face, and just be like, man, they're so cute. Who cares what anybody says? Sure, you have buck teeth now. Don't worry about it. You've got braces. You don't have any bulbs. Don't worry. They're going to come when you're 40. Like, all these
I know what's that saying, youth is wasted on the young. You just don't appreciate it when you're there. All of those things.
No. That's why my nieces, they think I'm a loca. They love me, but they're scared of me because I look at them and I'm like, ladies, you gotta get yourself together.
Well, that was the whole Zoe Coco thing. That was what it was.
Yeah.
That's what we wanted to share. That was our vision.
My nieces, my goddaughters, like I got Zoe Coco for everybody.
But we were the crazy, I mean, that was our position there where it's like the Zoe Coco idea was like, we're just the crazy fun auntie who's like, girl, you're 7, life is getting a little weird, you know, you're kind of figuring out what's going on. But like in the meantime,
you're cute.
You're cute, have a good time, smell like cotton candy, and keep it moving.
Be a unicorn.
Be a unicorn. Who cares? You're right. I think it's kind of that idea where it's that awkward phase. And then I can imagine with social media now, you actually never leave that awkward phase because like, you know, beginning very young, it's like, nothing's right about me. And then it's like, no, everything's right about you. It's everything's wrong.
My daughter can't even look at her phone without going, right. You know.
Oh, do you have a daughter?
I do. She's 17. She's a little bit. So, yeah, 17.
So she's in it.
Yeah, she's really in it. It's terrifying.
Yeah, it's. I think it's an interesting time for young women and men. You know, because as much as I have my boys, and there is this sense of it's a different type of upraising. But I'm still having, you know, those conversations, you know, with them of like, dude, you know, everybody's freaking out. Like yesterday, my son, he's starting middle school, and he's like, Mom, I'm kind of nervous. And I go, everybody's gonna be
Yep.
Remember that. And everybody is like, you know, even though they're acting all hard and talking, you know, whatever, which he's the king of. Okay. So, but he, you know, his little emotional side. So I wrote him a nice little letter, you know, telling him how weird and wonderful and strange middle school was going to be, but that, you know, we love him and that we want him to just be him, authentically him, and not have to apologize or explain or whatever to anybody.
You love him.
Well, except for the teacher. Again, he should not, you know, the teacher do not disrespect.
Yeah. But then he takes it too much and he's like, my mom told me I am who I am. So
I'm not even going to lie. I actually tell my daughter to, if the teacher's wrong, tell him. you're an independent, strong woman.
Yeah.
You don't need to have authority.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong.
I think, well, you know, the good with the bad.
There's a balance. Yeah. She's a good balance. She's a good girl. I'm like
my dad is literally here. That's his phrase the whole time. Life is a balance, Sandra. It's a balance.
I love that. I just want to hear you impersonating your dad for the next 3 days. That broke me, Jay. Again, fake cocktail, mocktail. I'd be cheersing and guzzling up water. This has been awesome. Is there anything that we've missed, Serena? I mean, this has been such a great conversation. Just like I said, I always kind of know, or Serena and I kind of always read a little background if we don't know the guest personally. But like this was so refreshing, Sandra, and I think it's because it's so authentically you. Sometimes, you know, people will say like, I don't know any other way to be. But to be on the receiving end of it and to be able to see it and be part of it and witness it and engage with it, it is a real treat. In all honesty, it's like, wow, I got to be part of something really cool. So thank you.
No, thank you
so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
And because we did this all upside down and back to front and we never introduced you, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes.
How people can find you, where people can buy the tapas.
Yes, absolutely. So my name is Sandra Portal-Andreu. I'm the creator and founder of Tappas. It's the all-natural patented charcuterie sphere. You can find our product at mytappas.com, mytappas.com. Not only am I a mother, but I'm also an interdisciplinary artist and a choreographer and inventor. And I'm based here in Miami. Cuban Colombian parents. That's it.